Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for attending the Making Tax Digital webinar. Hopefully, everyone that's in attendance can see the presentation. We're going to start off now. I think everyone that should be in will be in, and we'll run through a bit of housekeeping here. So the purpose of today's webinar is to give all of our existing Opera customers a understanding of what Making Tax Digital is going to mean for them, when it's actually going to land, and the timescales for getting ready for it. We'll probably start now and look to kick off and have this finished in around 12 o'clock, depending on questions. So it'll be myself, Gareth McKee, I'm the Customer Account Manager at Xperience, and Gillian Gillespie, who you all know from the Pegasus support team. So Gillian will be taking over the session later on today to talk you through the Opera side of things and what functionality is currently in that system to get you ready for Making Tax Digital. So before we start, just let you know what Making Tax Digital is. On the right-hand side of your screen, everyone that's joined the session will have a wee control panel. It should be muted, and if you keep that muted until we're ready for the question and answer session at the end of the session. If you feel brave enough to start asking questions, you can unmute your microphone and you can ask a question. Throughout the session, you'll also see you can actually put your hand up and ask a question. You can actually free type that question, and that question will be picked up by Carly Hughes, that's in the room with us today, who will actually field the questions as and when they come in. But as you know, if you're not brave enough to ask the question or come on the call later on today, you can actually speak to myself or your account manager if you've got any separate questions after the session. So this Making Tax Digital then, what's it all about? HMRC are always telling us that tax doesn't need to be taxing, but is that right? Well, Making Tax Digital is a key part of the government's plans to make it easier for individuals and for businesses to get their tax right and to keep on top of their affairs. So what this means is you're going to have to then digitally send your VAT return that you currently do through the HMRC gateway, and you'll also file your tax returns on an annual basis. So every business will have access to their personalised digital tax account, and this is being regularly expanded and improved as we get closer and closer to the switch on of Making Tax Digital. And HMRC actually has an ambition to be one of the most digitally advanced tax administrations in the world. So we're going to encourage everyone, no matter what you see today, a lot of the information that we have got here for you has came straight from HMRC's website. And because we've been through this before with the likes of RTI from HMRC and auto enrolment from the pensions regulator, this will not sit still. There will be changes, there will be tweaks, there will be things happening. So we would implore everyone that needs to look at Making Tax Digital to keep ahead of the information and use the resources within HMRC's website. Whenever you're Googling it, whenever you're trying to find the information, this is the logo. So you've got the logo there to let you know you're in the right place. So what are the goals for Making Tax Digital? What are HMRC planning to do? Well, ultimately, a bit like we've seen with the real-time information for the payroll, HMRC want to make it easier for businesses to stay on top of their day-to-day accounts. HMRC wants to be the most advanced tax administration in the world, and ultimately they want to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and ease of compliance. It will mean an end to paper accounting. So the traditional way that we do things, where we're taking information out of our account system and we're actually putting that information manually into a gateway, and all of the in-between processes in terms of your reports and getting information to your accountant, that's going to change. So the timescales. Now, whenever we speak to people about Making Tax Digital or mention it, apart from head in the sands and not really sure what everything's about, it's really gathered momentum within the last couple of months. It was very quiet for a while. We knew it was coming. We were all aiming for a 2020 launch date for the business side of Making Tax Digital, but that has changed. So HMRC at this moment in time are getting ready for a pilot scheme, which are going to launch in April 2018. That's going to be a very small scale pilot scheme, and that'll get everything tested and ready for the big launch, which is April 2019. April 2019 will be the point in time that you will need to submit your VAT return in a digital format using technology. At that point, the HMRC gateway that you can use to submit your VAT will no longer exist. And then that will then lead us into April 2020, where Making Tax Digital then also affects corporation and income tax for the likes of sole traders and partnerships. So over the last couple of weeks, as we get prepared for this web session, we have done a bit of research, tried as much as we can to use the direct source from HMRC so we can get this information correct for you. So this is what we know so far. HMRC are going to move away overall from filing taxes annually. So everything, VAT, corporation tax, the whole lot will be digitally submitted on a regular basis. A bit like real-time information, when we first seen that coming out for payroll, they use this term as real-time or as close to real-time as possible. So at the minute, we don't know what that's effectively going to look like when it settles, but at the minute, it is the HMRC are telling us that tax will be submitted on a 3-month basis. Each business then, under Making Tax Digital, will be issued with a digital tax account. And every single customer on the call who are currently using Opera 3 and Opera 3 only will be able to make these digital submissions within the Opera 3 program. So that's what it is and when it's happening. So is there any good news? Well, we think there is, and the HMRC certainly thinks there is good news for this. So each business under Making Tax Digital will be filing their tax returns on a regular basis. That means that you'll be on top of your VAT return. You'll be using your chosen system, in this case Opera 3, to file that information and report on that information. And you'll not be doing as much manual work going forward, so there's going to be less paperwork and reports. You will utilize the Opera 3 submission tools, and that already exists today, so Gillian's going to show us that at the end of the session. Because you'll be so on top of your VAT and because you'll be so on top of your submissions, you're going to have fewer surprises from the taxman. And you've more chance then, because you're doing regular VAT submissions, of working with your accountant to hopefully lower your tax bill through tax planning. We know from speaking to your customers, and certainly from the consultants going out on site, how manual VAT is for a lot of our existing Opera customers. A lot of people like their paperwork, they like their reports, they like how they currently do things. But Making Tax Digital is going to change all that. So the electronic data will be sent to HMRC, and off the back of this Making Tax Digital functionality, you'll also be sending information digitally to banks, building societies, and other government departments as and when that's relevant. Using the functionality within Opera 3 is going to give you far less work when you're submitting your VAT return, and getting you to that point when you're ready to submit your VAT return, we're going to help you every step of the way as your chosen Pegasus partner. So hopefully everybody's still with us, hasn't ran away. Is there any bad news about Making Tax Digital? Well, that depends. Certainly for Opera 2 customers, it is bad because Pegasus will not be putting in any of this Making Tax Digital functionality into that program. Opera 2 effectively will be end of life April 2019. This will not be hitting that system. You will have to use technology to submit your VAT return. Some people can be afraid of that, but we've all been through it before. We've all had to do auto-enrollment. We've all had to look at our RTI, whether you use Opera for your payroll or not. So we've done it before. It's there for us to use, and the functionality is ready for us to get ready in 2018. Yes, there'll be more VAT deadlines, but if you're reporting on your VAT on a regular basis, you're going to be on top of it, and you're going to be on top of the responsibilities you have for submitting that VAT. One of the big questions we had when we were researching this with HMRC and other sources is, well, what does this mean for my accountant? Again, knowing our customers, you do use accountants for your VAT submissions and your VAT tidy-up. So HMRC are directly saying that you don't actually need an accountant for Making Tax Digital. You will be able to figure out your obligations and make your submissions on your own because the technology will be there and Xperience will be there to get you ready. But HMRC and Xperience are encouraging all of our customers to speak to their accountants about the Making Tax Digital process and how you can manage your quarterly submissions, and ultimately check that they know it's coming, and it's coming in April 2019. So when do you start this work? April 9th, 2019 seems a long way off. But if you think about what else is happening in the background there, that For many people, might be their year end. It's certainly their payroll year end. We as a company will be out doing our payroll upgrades, and nobody here who currently uses or doesn't use the VAT submissions within Opera 3 will be ready for Making Tax Digital unless they get under the bonnet of their Opera 3 and with our help start looking at what needs to be changed and tweaked and reconciled in 2018. So we know it's launching in April 2019, and we want to put a challenge out to the existing Opera 3 customers here. We want you to use 2018 as the time where you start getting ready for Making Tax Digital, that you start utilising the consultants to come out and have a review of your current VAT reporting, to sit you down and let you know what needs to happen in terms of your tidy up to get you ready for submitting the VAT. But we don't want you to wait to 2019 to start Making Tax Digital. We want you to start using the functionality already in Opera 3 to at least send 2-3 submissions in 2018 when you're ready. So you're used to the system generating the reports, generating what you're going to see through Gillian's demonstration today in terms of reconciliation and so on, and getting that information digitally to HMRC. And as long as Opera 3 is tidied up and all the information is relevant, then what that means, you can then take Making Tax Digital just as another process in April 2019. So whatever tweaks happen to the submission gateway, we're only worried about that. We're not worried about what you're actually sending in terms of figures. So after Gillian's demonstration today, I'm going to come back on and tell you about the next steps for this, where we're going to start engaging with you through our consultancy channel to get your VAT tidied up and get out on the road and help you with this. And as I say, we want you to use 2018 to embrace the technology and meet this Making Tax Digital regulation head on. So HMRC and Xperience really do think that Making Tax Digital is going to be good for your business. The change will seem daunting because we have to adapt a new way of doing things, especially with technology. But we're going to be with you every step of the way. And we do believe firmly that 2018 is the time to look at this so you get ready for the launch of Making Tax Digital in 2019. So I'm going to mute my microphone in a wee second here and pass across to Gillian, who's going to bring up the Opera 3 demonstration here for the VAT return and show you what functionality is currently in the system. For any Opera 2 customers that are on the call, it's more relevant than ever to make your decision about that platform. So when you see this today and you've heard what was said about Making Tax Digital, we do implore you to contact your account manager and start to discuss what you do to move off that platform so that we're not leaving at last minute into April 2019. So I'm going to pass over to Gillian and she'll pick up with the Opera demonstration.
I'm Gillian. I'm one of the Pegasus consultants, and along with Claire and Conleth and Kerry, we support your everyday Pegasus problems and go out and consult and do payroll year ends and things. So my wee job for today is basically to show you the Opera 3 VAT return. Now, as Gareth has said, this won't apply to Opera 2 users. This facility isn't available for Opera 2, so bear with us if you're Opera 2. We hope that what you like, what you see in Opera 3. I'm going to make it as simple as possible. I don't want to get into training mode, so it's going to be a brief overview of all the sites or of all the processes, just to show you what the functionality can do. If you have any questions, make a wee note. We'll come back to them at the end. Carlene's here to look after that. So the first thing basically that we want to look at is the VAT codes. Now, as Gareth has mentioned, you will have been running Opera 2, Opera 3 for several years, and you may not have been using the VAT return option within Opera 3. So what you might find is that even though you've been doing your VAT returns in Excel or in a manual system, or your accountants have been doing it, the VAT has been building up in Opera. And basically, whenever one of the processes that we want to cover is that we need to get rid of all the rubbish whenever we decide that your VAT is kind of going to go live. Okay, so at any stage you can go into your current system now and see the VAT in there, and you'll see that if you haven't been using the VAT reporting within Opera, that it has been building up, and there'll be potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds wanting to be submitted to HMRC for VAT. So the first thing that we will look at as consultants, or that you need to look at basically, is within the VAT codes themselves. Now, I have what's called the EC module on my computer or on my Opera license. Some of you don't have EC VAT, so that means you don't trade with the EU. And some of you will already have this option ticked on. But if I go into my VAT code list, basically you can see I have a horrendous amount of VAT codes. But if you don't have the EC module, you will only have those VAT codes with an H. And that basically means that you only deal with VAT in the home country, which is GB, okay? So if you have EC module, you'll have Rs and you'll have Us as well in the country type, because that means that you're potentially registered for VAT in Republic, that you deal with VAT registered customers in the ROI, or that you maybe deal with unregistered VAT customers in ROI. So this VAT code list here is the most important part of Opera VAT, because from being out on site and from talking to existing customers, whenever I've talked about making tax digital and doing VAT returns online, customers might say, our VAT's special. We can't potentially put our VAT through the computer because we do things differently. That's where this has to kind of be tidied up. If you're going to use Opera 3 for a VAT return, you want your VAT to be gone in here into the correct box, okay? So that's from consultant point of view. We will come out and we will say, right, okay, what do you mean your VAT is special and that you account for it a wee bit differently? Does part of a sales invoice go to VAT code, VAT rate 20%? Does part of it go to 5%? If you do EU, is there 23%? Is there 13%? You know, so there's lots of reasons that your VAT might not be straightforward, but that's where we come in. We want to come in and say, well, do you sell VAT at 20% to UK customers? Well, yes, you do. So your country type is H, your transaction type is a sale, and your VAT rate for that code is VAT code 20. You'll see that Opera fills in boxes. It fills in, shows you on this return that it's going to go into box 6 on the VAT return. So that's what we'll do. We'll come out and we'll sit and go, right, which part of the VAT, or how do you account for that, or do we need to, is it exempt? Does it not go near the VAT return at all? So you can have a VAT code in here that is beyond the scope of VAT. So it's a non-VATable transaction. So that's where we'll come out and we'll look at your current systems and we'll sort your VAT code list out so that whenever you put on transactions, they go to the correct place. Okay. So once your VAT codes are done, then where does VAT get accounted from in Opera? Well, basically in your sales ledger, invoices and credit notes show VAT. Okay, so those VAT codes come from your customer accounts, and if your customers set up that they are in GB, that they're VAT code 1, well then whenever you put on an invoice to a customer, they'll automatically get 20% VAT added to them. So you can just go and do an invoice, and straight away, if that customer is in the UK, the VAT amount will come on to their account through the normal processes of invoicing, sales invoicing. Same within the purchase ledger, you have invoices and credit notes, and that then accounts for your VAT in there. But you've also got in the nominal ledger, you can do VATable transactions. Now, this might be for those people who have special VAT circumstances that they need to account for their VAT a wee bit differently. So it's not through a customer or a supplier, but a nominal journal could account for that. And you can see in here that whenever you do journals, there's an option to tick VAT Analyze. And basically that allows you to change, to put a net VAT or a net amount in and a VAT amount in. It's not posting it to a VAT control account. That's just a normal journal. This actually, by ticking this option, this will put it in to a VAT code box or on the VAT return and therefore account for it correctly in the VAT return. Okay, so your journals also can have VATable transactions on it, as can your cash book. Okay, so your bank, you can do nominal payments and nominal receipts into a cash book account. And again, those transactions can have VAT processing options attached to them as well. So we will be going through all of this with you. All of those 4 modules in the financial section affect your VAT return. I haven't got SOP or POP on here, but basically a sales order with stock will affect your VAT. A purchase order with stock will affect your VAT. So everything within Opera 3 could potentially have a VAT implication, and that's where as consultants we'll come out and we'll sit and go through each process with you to make sure that it's being accounted for. We're not saying to go live with this in April 2018. We want you to maybe dual run, you know, to do run it in Opera first, and along with your manual, your Excel, and to make sure that those agree. And it's only whenever those agree that we'll say, right, okay, you're ready basically to go online with your Making Tax Digital. Okay, so within then, that's the transactions that affect your VAT. Your VAT is normally quarterly submission, but what we can also help with is the fact that you don't have to wait until the end of that quarter in order to see what your VAT's going to be. So we don't want any shocks. So what Opera will do is in the sales ledger and the purchase ledger, there are already inbuilt reports called VAT analysis, and for the month that you're in, the current month that you're in, you can go and you can look at what your sales VAT is sitting at the moment. Okay, as you see, I have a wee test transaction set up, and my current sales ledger VAT for the month of April 2017 is showing me that I have £120 of VAT and £600 of goods. So I have only one VAT code used there. So that means that in my sales ledger, I have just put on transactions for a GB country, it's a sale, and it's VAT code 1. Again, this would show you a breakdown of all the different VAT codes that would be used. So on a monthly basis, you can see how your VAT is chugging along. And if you see anything peculiar that you don't like, well, then you can go out at this stage and fix it. You're not at the VAT return stage. Okay, so within the sales ledger, you've got that analysis report, and also within the purchase ledger, you've got that analysis report. So again, it's exactly the same. You can run a return for a VAT report for a particular period, and there you can see the VAT values currently in that nominal ledger month. So there's an example there in my purchase VAT. I have put purchases on with VAT code 1, which is 20% of this value, but I also have a transaction on that is exempt from VAT. So that might mean that one of my suppliers doesn't actually pay VAT. They maybe they're set up, there's special circumstances. But again, that's part of the process of getting you ready for VAT, is to make sure your suppliers and customers are on the right VAT code, as well as you having the right VAT codes created. Okay, now if we log out and go into back into the administration menu, so this is kind of where all your VAT comes from. You've also got VAT reports in here, and you've got detailed, you've got summary, you've got an audit trail, and you've got then the actual values. So what you can do again is at any stage is you can go and you could look at an old VAT return if you need to look at that, or you can go in here and you can say show me in detailed format what my current VAT is for this period. Okay, now over to the right here you'll see I can show transactions from sales ledger, purchase ledger, nominal ledger. I can show what's been committed on a VAT return. I'll come back to that, but for this purposes I want to show what hasn't been committed. So whenever I hit OK, you can see how detailed this report will come out. So I can see that in here, for the month of March, I have purchase ledger transactions, and I will have sales ledger transactions. But again, you can run these separately. You can run it for the sales ledger, for the purchase ledger, and for the nominal ledger. So this is where basically you're making sure that the transactions that are on your system for a particular month, for a particular quarter, are what you like, that you don't have to fix anything or put invoices on in the process of trying to get it right. Okay, so within VAT reports, there is four different types. There's summary, there's detailed, and again, we will go through that in detail with you what each of them do. So basically, I'm just going to change my wee date on my system to do a VAT return. So once you have ran all your monthly reports in your sales ledger and your purchase ledger, and you've agreed them, and then you think, right, I'm at my VAT quarter, I've ran my detailed VAT audit trail and I'm happy with the VAT transactions that are going in there, well then you're nearly ready to go and do your VAT return. Okay, so I am going to go and click on my VAT return. And what Opera is doing here is Opera is looking at my current VAT period, okay? And basically the reason that the VAT start period is sitting at the 1st of March is because my last period end, my VAT return end was the 28th of February. So it knows not to go and overlook a previous VAT return. It'll only go from the last one that was run. So I'm only looking at a month's data here, but it's just because I'm in demo mode. But pretend this was my VAT quarter. Well, whenever I go to here now and publish this, straight away I get what's called an exceptions report. Basically what an exceptions report is basically to catch the invoices or the credit notes that kind of come in late for a previous VAT return. So okay, you've done your VAT return up until the end of February. You're currently in March, April for your nominal, your sales and your purchases, but a supplier comes in and sends in an invoice dated August 2016 and you think, crikeys, how do I get that on the system? Okay, so do you put it in with the date of, again, this is up to yourselves, if you put an invoice on dated August 16, or do you put the invoice on dated March 17? Again, that is not an Xperience decision to be made, it's how you account for those. But basically what this exception report is showing you is that, look, these two transactions on the screen were put on to the system, but they were put on at a January date, so they were prior to this current VAT return. So it's telling you that these two transactions were missed, but they are in your current VAT return. So Opera will always pick up transactions prior to your VAT return that have not been previously committed. Okay, so that's the first page that will always come up. It could come up empty if you've behaved yourselves and all transactions are correct. So here's my VAT return for the month or the quarter that I have chosen. So this is what is going to go to the HMRC. So it's at this stage that this shouldn't be a surprise to you, because you should have used those other reports on a monthly basis to make sure that you were on top of your sales, that you knew what the sales amount was going to be, that you knew what was going to be reclaimed, or that what you were going to owe the VAT man. Okay. So, but if you do get a surprise in here and you think, crikeys, there's 100,000 of sales invoices that aren't on the system, well, really, you should have picked it up before now. But there's another little routine that we can go back to. Now, technically, if you're in the current month and you haven't committed your VAT return, Opera and HMRC would like you to fix that 100,000 of sales invoices by putting on the sales invoices in the current month. But what Opera has got inbuilt into it is what's called a VAT return adjustment option. Okay, now what this does is this allows you to fix your VAT return. Ideally, it's not for the current month, because if you're in the current month, go and fix it normally. You haven't completed your VAT return, you can go and put an invoice on, or a credit note on, or a nominal journal on for VAT to fix your VAT. What this really is to correct errors from a previous VAT return. Now, there is procedures to follow here, and there's rules and regulations. And basically what we would say is this: you need to, for this purpose, to follow VAT Notice 700/45. If you Google it, you'll find it, right? But basically HMRC allows you to make an adjustment to a VAT return if it's not above £10,000 or it's 1% of box 5, okay? That's about as much information I know about. But basically, if you need to make an adjustment to your VAT return for a previous period, okay, and you think that you fall within HMRC's rules and regulations, you can go in here and basically do it ad hoc. You can put in a date. You can say, is it a sales ledger or purchase ledger or nominal ledger account? So remember, that kind of goes and affects the VAT code box that it goes into. You can put it to an account if you want. You don't have to. You don't have to say, well, this customer came in late, but you do need to put a reference in, okay? You can change the country type, the transaction type, and the VAT code. And remember, it's these three boxes here that will influence the VAT return box, like VAT box 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on your VAT return. If you need to add £100 onto the sales figure, then you put in 100. If it's 20% VAT, then you put in 20. If you need to take off £100 off your goods and your VAT, then you would put in a -100 and a -20. And the comment then is basically HMRC want to know why you're making this adjustment. So you could say adjusting for misinvoice that came into the previous period, but remember Opera could pick that up in the exceptions routine, but basically Opera or HMRC don't want you just using this to diddle them. They need a genuine reason. But you can see here that by choosing the country type, the transaction type, and the VAT code, my VAT return boxes that are going to be affected by this are clicked at the bottom. Okay, so we wouldn't encourage VAT return adjustments. We would say they're a last gasp to get it right, but that if we would like you to be on top of your VAT on a monthly basis and to reconcile the VAT on a monthly basis so that you don't get any surprises. Okay, so the last thing basically we're going to do then is the most important bit, the online VAT. So in VAT processing, once you've agreed your VAT return, once you've agreed all your reports, and you're happy that the HMRC are there, basically we go and we click on the VAT return. Okay, in here you'll see it'll come up, and this is telling me what my period is going to be. Okay, and we would want all of these values here to match what we printed out on paper on our VAT return. Okay, so if they didn't match here, we would say cancel, go change your date, something's horribly wrong. All right, I know this is rubbish information, but and it won't agree with the wee VAT return that I showed, but we're in demo mode. So basically I would have to be agreeing that those figures are right. I then click the process button. Opera says I'm going to create a file. Is that okay? Yes, it is. Okay, it's telling me it already exists. That's because I've been practicing. Okay, now most important thing, online VAT only works through the online filing manager that you get with Opera. So for those customers of ours who don't have payroll, you will not have this wee bit of software. It comes free with Opera 3. It's just we won't have installed it because you didn't need it for your payroll. So we will make sure that it's installed, and in the online filing manager, which we're going to go into in a wee minute, we will make sure that your settings are all correct. But basically whenever you run this VAT return, it will come up and it'll say, look, this is where this file is going to be saved. So basically what this means is that I could run the VAT return on my PC, but I mightn't have online filing manager on my PC. Gareth might have it on his PC. But I know there's the path, a wee bit like the FPSs that you do. They're saved into the O3 server VFP folders, so you can go and pick them up at any time. So it's just advising me this is the path where it's going. I hit OK. Do you want to submit? Yes, I do. Hit OK. And basically, whenever I go to, hold on a wee moment, the online filing manager then for those people who don't know what it looks like. But basically, I have created a VAT return in Opera, and the VAT file was created and saved onto O3 server VFP. So what we have to do now is within Online Filing Manager, we have to go and send it to the government gateway. Okay, now before I would do that, for those people who just have it for Online Filing Manager for payroll, in here you will have already, you'll see user details set up. So this will be your government gateway details for the RTI submissions. We don't know what yet is, if there's going to be new submission details for the VAT return, or whether they can use the government gateway details for FPSs. We will assume that it'll be separate. So as well as having one user in here for FPS, for payroll, we'll also be creating another user for the online filing or online VAT returns. And again, the information that we get from the HMRC, your digital tax name, login name, user ID, we'll be putting those in here for you so that it's all set prior. Okay, so once you have your VAT file created within Opera, you'll then come into the Online Filing Manager, go to the Government Gateway and choose VAT return. All right, and again, this is a wee process of just going through next. You can see I'm just doing this on my PC, so I know that the VAT file is saved into this path. But This is where you would, if somebody did the VAT return on a different PC and they didn't have online filing manager, this is the path then that you would have to go and pick up the VAT return file from. Okay, so whenever we go through the wee next process, again, this report here, or this is what HMRC are going to receive, and again, that should match your paperwork that you generated whenever you did the VAT return. So whenever we choose next again, you'll see now you've got to the gateway user, and again for payroll customers, you'll be familiar with this. I don't have a user ID set up, so whenever I put in a password and hit next, it's going to ask me to confirm it. But at this stage then, this is the live link. So this is it going to HMRC, okay? I'm not going to hit the submit button because I'm in Iran Vehicles, which is the demo details, but this is the end of the VAT return, the online VAT. So as you can see, like management accounts, like payroll year end, all of your the online bit is the last thing in the jigsaw. You will have sorted out your VAT before you get to this stage. You'll not be just submitting any old thing. You'll have reconciled your VAT over each month and towards the quarter before you would finally get this to this submission. Okay, so hopefully, sorry for the wee problem we had in between there. It's just multiple software on a laptop. I hope you understood what I was on about. I hope it didn't get into training mode. If you have any questions about it, feel free now. I'm going to pass back over to Gareth. Feel free to ask. He has just a couple of wee things more to say to finish off. So thanks for listening. I hope you all stayed awake. Hold on a wee moment, please.
Thanks very much for listening to that. Hopefully you find that useful. As Gillian said, it isn't training, so I hope nobody's sitting taking loads of notes to go away and try it on their own. Effectively, what we want to do is to give you a bit of food for thought, get you thinking, right, this is a bit of work that needs to be planned correctly, and we want you to start moving forward. So, as I said at the very start, we want to encourage our customers to use 2018 as the year that they get ready for making tax digital. Really important thing to stress is what you have just seen is that's the status quo. That is what you can currently do with your VAT return within Opera 3. As 2018 pans out and we get more and more information from HMRC, we'll keep you updated as to what's changing and what the gateway is going to look like, if there is going to be any changes to that. But irrespective of what needs to happen in terms of HMRC and your communication with them through your Opera 3 system, you do need to use 2018 to at least get your VAT within Opera fit for purpose. Because up to now, if you haven't been submitting out of Opera and you have been doing it very manually, it will need a certain amount of tweaking. So we think it's best to start looking at this in 2 steps. First thing we need to do is, we'll not know of the 30 odd people on this webinar what state the VAT is within Opera. We're going to need to come out and see that. So we want you to arrange a half day of consultancy with the consultancy team, Gillian, Claire, Conleth, to have a chat through what the VAT looks like, what you need to do, what you need to tidy up. And that half day is going to talk you through the VAT processing side of things. Now you can do that with your account manager, and what we're going to do is we're going to give you a couple of days to let your sore head disperse and have a wee think about this, have a chat through this with your teams, and then we'll be touch base with you early next week to see who would like to take up the challenge of the half day. You, like us, more than likely, a majority of our customers, that half day window will sit better between now and Christmas, and we know we get January as a bit of a window, and then you're back into payroll season and everything else. So there's lots of people who are going to be looking this, so we would encourage as many people to get booked in as sooner rather than later. So once the team come out and speak to you and you've had your half day of consultancy, that leads us into step 2, and step 2 will be arranged between you and the consultant as to what it's going to look like and what time is needed to get your VAT ready. So this will be additional consultancy for us to sit down with you and help tidy up the historical VAT and to make sure that the existing VAT postings, so where everything's posting to in terms of VAT codes, are actually correct and not everything's just posting to a zero VAT code, and they conform to the current HMRC VAT guidelines. And then once we get that tidied up, and as Gillian said, you run your tandem submissions so you can see what your old process is doing versus the new process, and you're confident that it is working as it should be, then we're confident you're ready for the VAT 100 submissions in 2018. And we would encourage you to try at least 2 or 3 of those in 2018 so that you're comfortable using the digital technology. And then once that's done, and April 2019 hits, we should be good to go. We'll take all the changes on the chin that happens in the background with the technology and the gateway and what HMRC plans for that. But if we get the first 2 steps right, I think we're good to go.